thank you everyone for coming. You know, my name is Marlene, but Bob was not really introduced, so I'd like Bob to stand. So he's my husband of 47 years. Yeah. So I am the fourth of 5 children and the youngest of 3 sisters. Kathy was always my big sister, the one who took responsibility for running the household when my parents were traveling. She did a really great job of that. She took care of us, but even better than that, she let me loose in her library. And that is where I got my start on some of the classics. Kathy and I lived together on 2 occasions. Firstly, when I, and then later Bob, returned from Colombia and had yet to find accommodation. So this is in Calgary, right? And during this 6-month period, she was my guinea pig for an assignment that I was given in my graduate studies. I interviewed her a number of times on a particular topic that revealed much to me about her life as well as our family life. I was amazed at her level of self-knowledge, her willingness to share, plus her memory of detail. Since that time, she became my information source. I never knew what was going on, so I had to ask other people. The second occasion was when she came to live with us as a temporary measure to get her through to the age of 65. Kathy knew herself very well. She knew when she needed private time and when it was okay to socialize. By the 1990s, when she came to live with Bob and me in our home, she had been through many challenges. Her health condition and the death of her husband Peter, for example. Throughout these challenges, she developed a spiritual depth and a strong faith. Most of you know that Kathy was a generous person. She was generous in sharing her apartment on Uxbridge in Calgary, and with her many handicrafts that made their way to needy children internationally as well into the homes of family and friends. Samples of these handicrafts are here on the table. So everything here was made by Kathy. And actually she really took pride in her picture albums as well. She was happy to have reached the age of 65. She thought she wouldn't make it because of cancer. She told me recently that she worked so hard on making things for others because she felt her time was limited. She had to work hard to get it all done, sometimes staying up all night. When she turned 65, she found her ideal home. She loved her apartment and cherished her independence. Her increasing dependence on the wheelchair was a concern, but she chose to stay where she was. The thought of moving into a care home near the end of her life was quite distressing to her, but in the end, she didn't have to face that challenge. I think God showed Kathy special favor for her faithfulness. Kathy was having difficulty with falls, seemingly brought on by irregular dosage of medications. In the end, she contracted COVID in a hospital admission for a fall that left her concussed. She said in those last few minutes of conversation before she fell into deep slumber that maybe it was better to die this way, quickly with COVID, rather than suffer a long, protracted death with a condition like cancer. Ever the realist and the pragmatist. I really think Kathy was rewarded with the type of death she was given. How many people know the day of their death? How many of us will have time to prepare as she did? On her last day, and after taking her juice, she settled into bed and said, "I am ready." And she fell into a deep sleep that was ever deeper. At one point, I spoke my own version of Psalm 23, and she expressed her appreciation by saying, "It was wonderful," and that was the last I heard. There was a deep comfort in the psalmist's words, in knowing that she was guided and protected by the great shepherd in death as she had been in life. So in closing, I would like to read the Psalm 23 from the Living Bible version. Because the Lord is my shepherd, I have everything I need. He lets me rest in the meadow's grass and leads me beside the quiet streams. He restores my failing health. He helps me do what honors him the most. Even when I walk through the dark valley of death, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me, guiding me all the way. You provide delicious food for me in the presence of my enemies. You have welcomed me as your guest. Blessings overflow. Your goodness and unfailing kindness shall be with me all my life, and afterwards I will live with you forever in your home. Thank you.
Hi there. I've already introduced myself. I'm Joan McDonald, Kathy's niece, and my family has been introduced at these tables. Kathy was my aunt by marriage. She was married to my Uncle Pete, or we called him Pete, some people called him Peter, and Pete was my mom Claire's brother. I met Kathy over 40 years ago, and I was a bridesmaid at their wedding. And when Pete passed away in 1987, after their short marriage, my mother and brother Bill, and later my daughters Denise and Kyla, continued our close relationship with Kathy. She became more than just a relative to me, but she was a treasured friend. She was always interested in what was happening in our lives. She was a very special member of our family. Pete and Kathy moved to Calgary in the late 70s, and even though we didn't see each other that often, Kathy was a real presence in our lives. We had many phone calls over the years and exchanged cards and gifts. Kathy never forgot anyone's birthday, and she always signed her cards Kathy Allison. Kathy was a person who completed her Christmas shopping by July. A parcel would arrive in the mail in the summer, filled with little treasures of unique gifts that she had selected and wrapped, but not labeled. And the fun on Christmas morning was everyone opening them up and deciding who should get each of them. So it was very sad opening them this year in the days after Christmas and not being able to thank her. Kathy's Scrabble skills were amazing. Every time we met, either when I visited Calgary or when she came here and was staying at Charlotte's place, it was a given that we would have a Scrabble game. She was a real Scrabble shark. She had about 4 or 5 Scrabble dictionaries, and she left me her deluxe Scrabble game that I'm really quite pleased about. And of course, her handiwork, talents in crocheting and sewing and needlepoint were renowned, and my family reaped the benefits of her talents over the years. She sent us everything from satin pillowcases, crocheted hangers, colorful scrubbies, crocheted baby blankets, beautiful Afghans, baby Santa suit for Aiden, needlepoint portraits. Her creations were really gifts of love and real works of art. She gave them to family and friends and numerous charities. There are pictures over here of some of the fun things she gave to charities. So I encourage everyone to look at these tables if you haven't already. Kathy also kept numerous photo albums of her family and all the friends and family she was close to. And some of her photos and wonderful memories are also on display here. Kathy was a kind, loving, and generous soul. I really miss our phone calls and the bond we shared. She said to me more than once, including in a phone conversation her last week in hospital, that one of the best things she ever did was to marry into my family. And we are all so glad that she did.